To establish criminal liability under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023, the law requires a strict union, a physical act combined with a culpable mental state. The foundational Latin maxim, Actus non facit nisi mens sit rea, establishes this rule. An act does not make a person guilty unless the mind is also legally culpable. A guilty mind must explicitly accompany the physical act to trigger the statute. To master the second Hassas Law 1, we are going to track exactly how an offense structurally evolves from a mere thought into a state-sanctioned punishment. We will map the 4 chronological stages of a crime, decode the strict definitional thresholds in sections 2 and 3, and calculate the rigid mathematical limits the BNS places on punishments. First-year law students consistently lose marks on structural legal exam questions because they treat these concepts as isolated rules. They are an interconnected chronological pipeline. The timeline begins with Stage 1, intention. Intending to commit a crime is generally not punishable unless part of an actionable conspiracy. The pipeline moves to Stage 2, preparation. Gathering resources mostly resides in a legally safe gray area. However, the BNS carves out extreme exceptions, such as preparing to commit dacoity, where preparation alone triggers liability. Stage 3 is attempt under Section 62. This requires a direct, measurable step toward executing the crime. This is the absolute critical threshold where non-punishable behavior becomes legally actionable. Reaching attempt carries an immediate penal consequence, up to half the maximum sentence of the completed offense. The final stage is accomplishment, where the physical act fully realizes the intended guilty mind. Examiners design situational questions to test the exact boundary between Stage 2 and Stage 3. You must identify the precise moment preparation crosses into actionable attempt. Once accomplished, the act is filtered for the definitional gateways of BNS Sections 2 and 3. Look at Section 2, subsection 8. The BNS modernizes the definition of a document by integrating electronic and digital records into physical evidence law. Moving to Section 2, subsection 4, we find the definition for counterfeit. Notice the text. The core of this offense relies entirely on the intent to deceive. The statutory explanation immediately following clarifies the threshold. An imitation does not need to be an exact copy. Deceptive intent combined with resemblance is sufficient. The statute defines acting dishonestly as a strict legal equation. It requires proving the intention to cause either wrongful gain or wrongful loss. Wrongful gain means acquiring property unlawfully. Wrongful loss means unlawfully depriving someone of their property. Establishing either variable satisfies the legal requirement. Conversely, claiming an act was done in good faith demands proof of due care and attention. Positive intentions cannot defend negligent actions. Omitting a precise definitional threshold from Section 2 nullifies the underlying legal argument. Without the strict statutory definition, a professional analysis collapses into a basic summary. The final stage is the penal consequence. Section 4 outlines a strict hierarchy of punishments, extending from death and imprisonment down to community service. The formal inclusion of community service directs the penal system toward reformative justice for minor offenses, offering an alternative to standard incarceration. To prevent arbitrary sentencing, the Code imposes strict mathematical limits. Under Sections 11 and 12, the absolute maximum duration an offender can be kept in solitary confinement is capped at 3 months over their entire sentence. Within that cap, there are internal limits. Confinement cannot exceed 14 consecutive days. If the total sentence exceeds 3 months, solitary confinement is strictly restricted to just 7 days per month, with mandatory breaks. This chart visualizes the proportionality rule for fine defaults found in Section 8. If an offender defaults on a fine, the court can add imprisonment, but that additional time cannot legally exceed 1/4 of the maximum term. For repeat offenders, Section 13 establishes an enhanced punishment mechanism. The state compounds liability for criminals convicted of subsequent offenses carrying base sentences of 3 years or more. Sections 4 through 13 impose strict algorithmic boundaries. They are engineered to restrict judicial discretion and dictate exactly how the state may execute punishment. Zooming out, we can trace the entire architecture of an offense. It begins with the union of intent and action, flows through the 4 progressive stages, gets filtered by Section 2 definitions, and terminates predictably at the Section 4 punishment matrix. Look at your Semester 2 examination paper. This exact pipeline dictates university testing. Question 1, subquestion 3, asks you to explain the maxim Actus non facit nisi mens sit rea. Question 2, subquestion 2, asks for the stages in the commission of crime, mapping identically to our four-step progression model. Meanwhile, short note questions asking to define terms like wrongful gain test your ability to flawlessly recite the definitional gateways from Section 2. The highest marks go to students who demonstrate the systemic relationship between the act, the statutory definition, and the penal consequence. Apply this architecture to your next module to maintain total legal precision.